But for now, I want to tell you about the next plenary session, because this plenary session is arguably probably the most important one of the entire Congress, although I'm sure every chair will argue exactly the same thing. It is about what do you do, what is being done about climate action. We talk about climate action, but this session is about the actual action part of it. You can see how many people that we have about to join us on the stage. Their chairs are actually being set right now. And I want to introduce you to the chair of this session. His name is Mitchell Kosny, and Mitchell Kosny will be your chair for the next for the next 1 hour with his plenary session. I do believe we are ready. Mitchell, over to you. Good afternoon, plenary. Good morning, plenary session. Please join us on stage. Thank you.
Welcome back. Okay. Good morning. This session is titled Cities Spearheading the Global Green Revolution. I just want to take a few minutes at the beginning and let me be very blunt. I actually think the whole issue of green revolution, of climate change, is the elephant in the room. I've been to 3 or 4 of these congresses, and it sort of feels like it's always around, but it's never front and center. So to the organizers, and we were talking before we came on, I think it's incredibly important and in one way obvious that this is really the issue that frames everything else that's going on throughout these 2 days, as well as everything that's going on in the expo. So it brings together 2 pieces. Cities. I mean, that's what we're here for. That's where we live. That's where this issue will be dealt with. And, of course, the global green revolution, climate change. We're going to marry both of those with this panel. Anybody who turned on the news last night, we come from both sides of the pond on this panel. Whether you're looking at what's happening in Venice, whether you're looking at, I think the phrase last night was catastrophic fires in New South Wales and Australia, and California. I'm from Canada, the polar ice cap. I think it's harder and harder to deny that this issue is front and center. It's front and center as in my own country had a federal election about a month ago, and this was the issue. But, and this is the focus of the panel, what do you do about it? I want to embrace all of this issue. I want to feel good about it. But I have to say, when I go home to my office, I don't know really what to do about it. So that's what we want to spend the time this morning talking about. Very practice-oriented. What do you do about sort of the role of cities and the global green revolution, climate change, when you go back home? The other thing I would say is that 10 or 15 years ago, there was a phrase that we threw, and I think some of you remember, thinking globally, acting locally. All issues are local issues. It's a global concern, but we want action at the local level. That's where cities play the most important role. So we have a panel here that mixes private, public sector, and politicians, and I think it's really great in terms of our perspective as well as geographically from both sides of the pond. So each panelist, and I will start on my left in about 30 seconds, will have 4 minutes to make some opening comments. Then we have about 25 minutes to, the phrase is debate, have a conversation among us. But what the panel has agreed to do is, rather than just talking among us, we'd really like to bleed into the question and answer from the audience. So I'm going to play that a little bit by ear, and that there may be some backing and forthing, but I'm kind of serving notice now to you that there are mics, as you know from other sessions. Please be ready to go to them. I'll do my best to recognize you, and I think the point is to try to make this as engaging as we can for you and us, and that's the whole spirit of sort of how we will do this. So let me kick things right off. You've got everybody's bios and apps, so I'm not going to go over all of that. But let me, in order, first on my left, I'm going to ask Bertrand Camus, who's Chief Executive Officer of Suez, for his opening comments. Bertrand, please.
Thank you very much, and good morning, buenos dias. I'm very happy to be here with you today. Basically, I mean, we all know the major figures about what is in front of us. 2050, 10 billion inhabitants on the planet, 70% living in urban areas. We are already reaching overshoot day, which is the day when renewable resources are being consumed at the end of July, now in 2019. And of course, all of that in the context of climate change that is disturbing a lot the way our cities are operating and people are living in those cities. I would add two additional constraints, which are one, city cannot be opposed to countryside, and there is this question of inclusiveness. They cannot be a fortress isolated from the rest of their own environment, of course. And then there is a major constraints on resources, financial resources, because I mean the needs are in all sectors: education, mobility, security, healthcare, and so on. So a lot has to be done, but what is interesting, positive, good, is that there are solutions, and this is what, as a leader in environmental services, we do every day for our clients, being municipalities or industrial actors. And we come up from a world where we have been investing a lot in the smart revolution of our businesses, our verticals. And just to give you a couple of examples, if I take the water cycle, and I usually use this example because it's very visual. It's searching a leak on a network. So here you have all the condiments of infrastructure, waste of resources. The leak is a waste of resource, additional cost, and so on. So 15 years ago, you had to send someone at night to listen if there was a noise, and then you would dig a hole and of course try to find the leak and repair it. And we moved first to a world where, thanks to sensors, captors, and softwares, we were able to locate more precisely a leak. And therefore be much more efficient in the way we can repair it very quickly, to a world now where we can even anticipate the appearance of leaks, being more preventive by better regulating the pressure. I take this example, which is very granular, but to show you that smart technologies, captors, and the algorithm we have been developing are a way to run better our infrastructure, to be more efficient, and to tackle those major challenges. We have examples in storm water management, and so on and so on. Then the next step is what we have been developing with a couple of municipalities, especially in France. We have now two showcases. The first one is Dijon, where the contract was signed more than 1 year ago, and very recently the city of Angers, in the center of France, has awarded us a contract where we are a partner to develop their smart city solution. And what is very interesting is that what we are doing in our own vertical is being done in all the services of the city, with this capacity of better managing the resources, better managing the solutions, creating efficiencies, and of course opening also the venue for hybridization between all the services. So very happy to answer any question you may have. I mean, we have plenty of solutions, and we are not, I would say, ecstatic or in front of the challenges we have to face, but once again, there are a lot of solutions that can be implemented to improve the situation now and in the future.
Thank you. Well, Rafael, you had a few minutes to catch your breath. I think when we were talking earlier, your sort of phrase to me was, giving up is not an option. Let me turn it over to you.
That is true. Giving up is not an option. And just walking around the hall, it's very clear to me that the technology already exists. And the problem isn't a lack of ideas. The problem is lack of will in the greater world, the greater society, to push these ideas through and make them happen. So I think that is our biggest hurdle right now. Certainly we could have more technology and always developing new things. I would love that idea. But what's stopping us over the last 10, 20 years, since the science has been conclusive for decades now. We've all known about this. I've been learning about climate change since the 80s. And we've been trying to do something since the 90s. And now 20 years later, and we're still talking about dreams instead of talking about what we've already, excuse me, been able to accomplish. So I think that there's two angles. And one angle has to be reevaluating what's important, what has meaning, and what has value. And we've been kind of sold as a society this lie that we have to work so much to accumulate all these material possessions. And we need to start realizing that more stuff doesn't necessarily make us happy. And we have more free time, more time with your family, more time with your children, more time with your friends. When we stop having this greed to keep burning fossil fuels, to keep polluting our environment. So I think this is this big wake-up call for our whole society to really think about what is important to us. And it's a time we're going to have to change, because what's happening is we're going to have more extreme weather events. Even if tomorrow we all woke up and we stopped burning all fossil fuels. It was done. Climate change is already baked in. We're already going to have increased heat waves, increased inundation, increased extreme weather events, floods, cyclones, all of it. It's coming. So not only are we going to have to reinvent our future, we're going to have to deal with the climate change that's already been set in motion. And we're going to have to deal with this collectively, because the people who are going to suffer the worst are the people who contributed the least, and that is people who are not as financially advantaged. So that's women, children, people of color who made the least contribution to the problem are going to suffer the worst consequences, and which means we all need to do this together. We can't wait around, oh, the scientists are going to come save me. Everybody has to raise their voice. Everybody has to become part of the solution. The scientists aren't going to save us. The engineers aren't going to save us. We've been trying for decades. So now it's time for everybody to put on their hat and join together. And I don't think that's a negative thing. I think it's a huge opportunity, because society has become fragmented. And it's a good time to meet your neighbors, and it's a good time to dig in and start working.
Thank you. Karine, you wear a political hat. From your position as Deputy Mayor of Lyon, and also really Vice President looking at innovation and smart city, let me kind of ask you, wearing that hat, to offer some opening comments.
At the scale of the metropole of Lyon, we expect a growth of around 10% for our population. We are facing with 500,000 of cars entering in the metropolitan area every day. When I mentioned that figures, it's to highlight that we are facing an increasing density that questions very basic freedom on a day-to-day basis. Free mobility is a good example. We also have a risk as a city that grows fast to face with an unbalanced growth, with new territorial division between districts in front of the others, and social disparities. The reality is that it's more a feeling than something real. But anyway, it's there, and we have to manage that as a politician. We also have this feeling that is around regarding an increasing risk for public and private health. It's the top first fears from the population, beyond unemployment, beyond security. And obviously, it's addressing a challenge that we have, that is about, air quality, ground quality, the way we are feeding today. So all that is what we have to manage as a politician. And the thing is that you can be right, you can have the perfect technology, or whether there's a solution to address that diverse challenges. If you don't use the right way to explain to the population how you want to achieve that, you are from a huge block, and you cannot really succeed. So the way we manage that as a local level, as a local authority, is first we deeply think that as a local government, as a city, we are not a stakeholders and another. We have an expertise, which is a city management. We have a mission, which is a common interest. And we have this position as a 50-60 view in an ecosystem that we can put in dynamic in a different way. That means that we need to invest all our effort on what I call the governance model, and to change our position as a local authority to manage that, with one aspect that is very precious, that is about the trust and confidence that the citizens still have with the mayor. That's the first thing. The second thing is we need to manage the growth on a different way, and orchestrating a green growth, not just a growth, but a growth that is sustainable. In Lyon, we have this example of a territory that is a chemical valley. We can take a very easy decision, just remove all our industry aside the city, and we are good. We have a good air quality and so on, but it's not what we want to do. We want to keep that industry inside the city, but change, the way we produce goods and so on. So we invest money and projects to design the zero-emission factory, for example, and we focus all our effort in this area specifically regarding renewable energy, with solar plants, with hydraulic solution, and so on. Just there, because it's there that we have the problem, and where we want to maintain everything. And the last thing is regarding the urban management, where we can easily redesign the city very differently, with a small ecosystem by district, instead of a strong, earth of a city with that where you commute with a suburban area and so on. And it's a long process, but that makes a huge difference in a time. I will deploy the other idea later.
Okay. Thank you. Miguel, your position at Deloitte is Global Smart Cities Leader. Please.
Okay. I'll use the 4 minutes the best way, and then I can deep dive on some things. I would just like to make like 3 statements. The first statement is we have a problem, our kids have a problem, and future generations have a problem. The second thing is cities have a very, very relevant role on solving this problem. And the third thing is technology in cities. And innovation in cities, or smart cities, may also be very relevant. I don't come from the sustainability world, and I really believe we have a very, very serious problem, and I'm sure that you share it with me. And why? Of course, we have the issue of the global climate change. We need to reduce 45% CO2 to get less than 1.5 degrees until 2030. I read I was reading many things, and we had like 800 extreme weather events this year. From 1990, we lost forests of the size of South Africa. The sea level is increasing 50 millimeters every year. We had those problems that were commented in, so it's starting to get to us, like in Venice. Many Pacific islands are disappearing. Greenland ice, nearly 4,000 gigatons are lost every year. So it's a climate change. But it's not just a climate change. We have a resource problem. Our population is 7B, and it's growing. If we compare the meat consumption per person on the last 30 years, it grew 50%. And we have consumed more resources in the last 50 years than all humanity during all its existence. And that's the second problem. The third problem is water. Water withdrawals have doubled since 1960. More than half of the world will have water problems in 2030. Two examples, Egypt until 2025 will triple its population, and the water per person is 1/5. If we go to China, China is 20% of the world population, has 7% of the water. Based on what I read, in Beijing, we may start having problems of water in 2030, also because of pollution. So this is something that's happening, and it's being exponential. The times we hear about these, that I hear about these today, it's 10 times more than what I heard 6 months ago, and it will decuplicate again in next time. Of course, things are being done. We have the Paris Agreement. We have the SDGs. Of course, we in Deloitte are also committed to that. We were part of the definition of some of those, but things needs to start happening. Regarding cities, and I'll stay with that for now, before we go to the concrete things. Regarding why cities important, and I'm sure that you are aware of that. 70% of us will live in cities in 30 years. 80% of global GDP is in cities. 80% of world energy consumption is in cities. 60% of greenhouse gas emissions are in cities. And there are things which are being done, broad things that are being done, like the 11th SDG. Just for you to have an idea, our purpose in smart cities is to have an impact in 100 million people aligned with the 11th SDG. Of course, we have the C40. Things are being done, but much more needs to be done. I'll stay here. I won't go to the smart cities now. I'll go later.
Thank you.
So we have a problem. We need to do something. We all together, as you said, and I think it's we all together.
Mauricio, your current position as governor of Yucatan sort of builds on a history of being in the political world at the local, as a mayor and as a state congressman. From your perspective, I don't know if sort of being governor is better or less better than sort of your other roles at different levels, but let me turn it over to you for an opening for 4 minutes of comments, please.
Thank you very much, Michelle. First of all, I want to apologize because I want to be speaking in Spanish, so probably some of you will have to use your translator. Como bien decía Michelle, yo actualmente soy gobernador del estado de Yucatán, vengo de ser alcalde de la ciudad de Mérida, que es la capital del estado, y hoy pues no solamente vivimos un gran reto con el tema del cambio climático, sino que hoy pues cada vez está más complejo en el mundo de la política el poder trabajar en este tema. Bien lo comentaba Miguel, hoy la gran cantidad de la gente vive en las ciudades. En los próximos 30 años se espera que cada vez más gente vaya a vivir a las ciudades, y el estado de Yucatán en México no es la excepción. Hoy en día la ciudad de Mérida tiene prácticamente el 50% de la población de todo el estado en solamente el 2% del territorio. El gran reto que tenemos en Yucatán, como en muchos otros lugares, es cómo podemos tener los recursos necesarios para resolver y hacer de nuestra parte para poder resolver pues esta crisis que estamos viviendo. Yo creo que si algo nos ha estado fallando como gobiernos, y creo que nos está fallando a todos, y es una pregunta que nos tenemos que hacer, es ¿estamos haciendo lo suficiente para poder concientizar a todos los habitantes del planeta sobre la importancia y el reto que tenemos adelante? Me queda claro que aquí en Smart City, que con la gente del Círculo Rojo, esto nos queda muy claro. Pero yo he estado en 3 campañas políticas y nunca me han pedido, cuando camino por la calle, gobernador, alcalde, por favor ayúdenos para que dentro de 30 años la temperatura tenga los grados que se necesitan. La gente te está viendo y te está pidiendo por sus problemas inmediatos, ¿no? Por su calle, por su alumbrado, por la seguridad, por el tema de la salud, y esto nos hace complicado como gobiernos muchas veces el poder destinar los recursos suficientes. Yo concuerdo totalmente con lo que decía Laura, la tecnología está para poder resolver los problemas, pero no todos los gobiernos locales y estatales tienen los recursos necesarios para poder adquirir esta tecnología. Creo que el primer gran reto es cómo podemos hacer que el costo de esta tecnología baje y sea accesible para todos los gobiernos, que sea accesible para las personas, pero también el que podamos ir educando a nuestra gente para que este tema se vuelva una de sus principales prioridades. Nosotros, por ejemplo, en Yucatán, hoy en día estamos realizando hemos realizado nuestro plan de desarrollo. ¿Cuál es una herramienta que tienen los gobiernos para tener más recursos, para justificar el invertir recursos? Pues son en nuestro plan de desarrollo, donde están los ODS, los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible. Creo que la ONU nos ha puesto muy claro el camino que tenemos que seguir. Al nosotros poder desarrollar nuestros planes de desarrollo, pues se nos hace más fácil el poder poner en el tema sobre la mesa, cuando hay tantos problemas que necesitan solución inmediata, el tema del cambio climático. También es importante que creo que tenemos que concientizar el tema del cambio climático. ¿Es el término adecuado? Yo he escuchado en muchos lugares que se hable de la crisis climática. Yo creo que tenemos que hacer esto todavía más urgente, que cuando la gente oye cambio climático, pues no necesariamente le dice algo que llegue a entender. Bueno, pues hay cambio, el cambio es normal, todos estamos acostumbrados a que hayan cambios. Pero cuando hablamos de una crisis, es el llamado de acción que necesitamos como ciudadanos y como gobiernos para decir, tenemos que hacer las cosas diferentes. Y yo creo que el gran reto que tenemos todos los gobiernos es cómo hacemos lo que nos toca hacer, nuestra parte responsable en este tema.
Thank you, everybody. Let me sort of kick it off with a question. Mauricio, in a way you ended on it. There's no shortage of problems, whether it's, again, national, provincial, state, local level. There's enough problems. We certainly can add problems to the list. We don't very often take problems away. So the list grows and grows and grows. I look at sort of decision-making bodies, and whether it's streets, roads, transit, you name it. We all have not enough budgets, not enough time, and the political reality is a time frame of 4 years, maybe 3 years, and the problems now don't respect timeline. So let me be with all of you. And Laura, I'm going to just arbitrarily ask you to kick it off and sort of others jump in. How do you move this? See, I think the discussion has moved. It's moved to, at least we're talking about it. And relative to not talking about it, that's a big step. The next step is bigger and more important, and it's here. How do we kind of move from that, talking about it in nice gatherings like this? We're all left our carbon footprint all over the world as we sat in airplanes for 8 or 10 hours to get here. How do we move that to the decision-making bodies of people being involved that then drive budgets to sort of start to deal with this? Laura, can I kick it off? And I'm going to, again, move down the panel and say, what do we do on Monday morning, as I said before we came on, what do we do on Monday morning to start to move this stuff much further, much faster, and do stuff about it?
Sure. Well, I think it's great that there's such a mixed group here, and I mean, to the two people who work in politics, it's like I've been told by my mayor and my vice mayor of my city is that when more people show up to the city council meetings and build relationships with their representatives, that really, really makes a difference. So that's, I mean, and I would ask the two of you, if you were saying that people, if they came up to you on the street and asked you more about climate, so it's a combination between educating the society so that the society wants to act, wants to participate in local government, wants to show up and find out what's going on. Because it's really the people who vote for their representatives, and if you vote for a representative who really wants to take action to support the environment, then that's more likely than, like in my city council, for example, there's the mayor, the vice mayor, and 3 council members, and all 5 of them have to vote. So you could have like 2 against 3. So, and I don't know what that's like in your cities, but I'd be interested to hear. The political reality is a reality, but the politicians will only act if their constituents are along with the ride and stakeholders. Which it was kind of like I was talking about this Complete Streets group that I'm part of, and it's a group from the city that has gotten the public super involved. So they're going out, there's an art walk, there's a wine event, there's a Christmas holiday park, and there's a booth in all of these. Getting people to participate, to fill out forms, to ask questions, and it's very well publicized so that the public has gotten involved in communicating with their representatives, and the representatives can listen to the public, and when they pass a law, instead of feeling like it's top-down enforced, the citizenry feels like they've participated, and they're much more likely to go along with it. So I'm just glad that there are politicians in this group, because I want to hear what they have to say about that same thing.
Before we go there, Bertrand, you wanted to add a comment, then I'm going to go.
Yes, there are several, I can make several comments. First of all, I'm not in politics, so I can only speak about business.
We're all in politics.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah, we have to. No, but look at also the evolution of the mentality of the new generations. What are they worried about? What do they want? I mean, the gap is as huge with my kids that it is with my parents, you know. It's and it's going even faster. And I think that when you look at pools, for example, in France we have one observatory for environment. When you look at the question, people, their first worry is about quality of water in rivers, presence of toxic products in rivers and therefore in water. And price of water, I mean, it's 56 to 60% of the people are worried about, and price of water is only 10%. While when you look in the political debate, very often you speak more about the price of water than the quality of the water by itself. The only thing I must say is that ourselves, we sign contracts for 10, 20 years long because we need to develop infrastructure, amortize it, so we have to have this long-term vision. And I think that what is very important is to have ambition about not only recognizing the issues, but tackling them. And if I make a parallel with the energy sector, look at the development of renewables. The price of renewables, it started 20 years ago, it was very expensive. And then you have a whole industry that was that created innovation and so on. And now, very often, renewable energies are cheaper than fossil fuel energies. And in our issues of climate change and adaptation to climate change, I'm truly convinced that if we really want to seriously tackle the issue, we have the means and the solutions to deal with it.
Okay. Richard, let me pick up on something you said, and on one hand, it's dangerous to say this, but there's nothing like a good crisis. I'm not looking for crises. We've got enough. But does it take a crisis sort of in your backyard, in your state, in my city, that affects me to really activate my involvement at the local level? And I'm going to go back in terms of Lyon as well. And does it come from this broader perspective, or as Laura says, does everything kind of need to come from? I mean, I don't think it's up down. It's both. But does it kind of get generated at the local level, or is this something that really you think does pervade upper levels, and must it be driven by a crisis?
Me? Okay, so I think it should be addressed in two levels. But I think that at the global level, with the United Nations, it tends to be addressed. Of course, it needs to be pressured more. I think the real change should be done, I would say, with many things, but three of them maybe. The first thing, this is business. We should stop thinking about this green economy as non-business economy. This is big business. Everything we see here in Smart Cities World Congress is contributing to this panel here. Everything, 100, maybe not 100%, maybe 90% of what we see here, what you are showing here, is contributing to the green. So that's the first thing. So for corporations to invest. The second, but it's not enough, of course. The second thing is for governors. This has a great business case. Yesterday we just showed a study. We co-developed a study with many ecosystem partners about the return on investment of smart cities initiatives, and the return on investment is between 3 and 5%. So this is good for governance. That's the second thing. So let's try to bring that to our governments and show that they can make money on top of that, or they can reuse that resources in order to get more votes on other things. That doesn't matter. And the third thing, our kids, we need to, as it was being explained in your keynote, we should get to our groups, we should get to our cities. One example on the local level, I live in Lisbon, which is a great city, by the way, and one of the things that's being done, they have just done a pact in Lisbon with many, Deloitte also signed the pact, but many of the corporations in Lisbon signed that pact. So we are all committing with several objectives, very aligned with SDGs, and that's at city level, not local, but it's an example of last week.
Mauricio and then Karine, I'm going to ask you to wade in on the same problem, and maybe I'm closer to the end of my career than the beginning. I'm getting frustrated, and maybe the closer, I feel like my time's running out. Things aren't moving fast enough. Problems are moving faster than solutions are moving. Can I sort of ask both of you, and Mauricio, starting with you again, how do we kind of, again, I want to see budgets. I want to see line items. I want to see this move from a session like this, which I think is spectacular. Again, 10 years ago, this wasn't here. So in the scheme of the life of cities, it's moving fast. But the issues and the problems and the impacts are moving faster. How do we sort of really rocket things forward? And again, I think of budgets, money and resources and line items to dealing with it. Mauricio, can I ask you to go first again, whether it's the state and the local and sort of your role as governor, and Karine, back to you sort of from your side of the point. Mauricio, how do you just really, I want to feel like I want to walk out with a flip chart. 10 things to do. Bang, 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 bang.
Mira, creo que lo más importante es que la gente pueda estar en sintonía con lo que estamos platicando. Por ejemplo, si tú, y creo que Laura estaba comentando algo similar, si tú eres el presidente de un consejo de administración de una empresa y todo tu consejo te está diciendo que hay unos problemas y tú hablas de otro, lo más seguro es que no tengas ese cargo durante mucho tiempo. Hoy lo que necesitamos hacer es que los problemas que estamos viviendo al día a día en nuestra ciudad se los hagamos ver a la gente como parte de un todo, que es el cambio climático. Por ejemplo, en Yucatán somos una zona muy calurosa. Hace algunos años teníamos temperaturas de 40 grados centígrados y a lo mejor esto pasaba 10, 12 días al año. Hoy estamos teniendo alrededor de 15, 17 días de 42 grados centígrados. El calor cada vez se hace más intenso. ¿Y qué pasa? Cuando hay mucho calor, la gente se interesa mucho por el tema. Gobernador, alcalde, ¿qué va a hacer usted? Hay que sembrar más árboles. Y el tema es decir, esto se está debiendo al cambio climático. Y claro que hay que sembrar más árboles, pero los árboles no se siembran hoy que tenemos calor. Los árboles hay que sembrarlos todo el tiempo, durante todo el año, para que los efectos se vayan dando. Hoy, por ejemplo, en Yucatán tenemos alrededor de 15,000 casas que están en la playa. Tenemos un puerto que se llama Progreso, se tienen las casas y las casas dan al mar. ¿Qué pasa? Hoy la erosión se ha estado comiendo la playa, lugares donde antes habían 60, 70 metros de playa, hoy el mar está llegando a las casas. Señores, esto está siendo causado por el cambio climático. En función de que podamos aterrizar de lo local hacia lo global, que la gente entienda que estos problemas que se están dando en sus ciudades están siendo ocasionados por el cambio climático y que está en sus manos y en las manos de su gobierno el poder aportar a la solución, creo que podemos avanzar. Creo que también mucho de lo que ha pasado es que la gente escucha hablar en la televisión del cambio climático y escucha hablar a gente de otros países con problemas totalmente diferentes a los que tiene y lo ve algo demasiado lejano. Creo que el gran secreto y lo que necesitamos hacer, y cuando ves lo que estamos haciendo en Yucatán, es que los problemas del cambio climático que estamos teniendo, es decirles, esto que está pasando aquí en tu casa, esto es lo que está pasando en tu casa de la playa, esto que viviste hoy, este calor intenso, está relacionado con el cambio climático, y estas son las cosas que tú como ciudadano tienes que hacer y que nosotros como gobierno tenemos que hacer. En la medida que logremos hacer esto, vamos a poder tener mejores presupuestos que nos permitan tener las tecnologías y tomar las medidas necesarias que se necesitan.
Okay. Karine, you actually have the title of Vice President in charge of Smart City Innovation and Digital. I must say, in my own city of Toronto, I would love to have an office like that. So, on one hand, I think it's amazing to institutionally have a place, have a function that sort of does that. How do you keep these issues on the agenda, on the public agenda, and again, sort of make that link into operating budgets and resources and strategic directions on a regular basis. Please.
What I would like to mention is that it's not a question of budget. We have all we need to move on. It's rather a question of how you succeed in empower people and your city maker to make this move and to provide the right solution. It's where the local authority needs to have a new position in this, environment that is a city, to make things done instead of providing directly the solution or the services. And for that, we are in an incredible, period of time with obviously technologies that provide a new potential with data. And data are, interesting only if you can transform data into knowledge and awareness, not just to provide new innovative services. And it's what we do, for example, at the scale of our city with energy. Very simple solution like instead of providing, innovative services to better understand your energy consumption, we provide open data to answer questions like, is your roof sufficiently sunny to produce solar electricity? And by this way, you can extend your potential of deployment of solar energy under a roof of people by figures that is just extreme. And it's how we can leverage and make the difference. The other thing is about the story that we tell. I think that we are, all very anxious, all very, and we need to look forward, our future with desire, with, solutions that are reachable. And we don't have to feel so guilty. We just need to feel more easy to make things happen. And it's what we try to do at the scale of city, and we talk more about lifestyle. What is the lifestyle that you want to have? And just to explain that if you use your bike, it's cool. It's not just because you're going to save your planet. It's just because it's cool. It's a better experience for you. At the scale of your city, you can look around your city. Your city is beautiful. You can meet people. You can, It's most, convenient in terms of time. Same with walking, And you just arrange the environment to make, this feeling happen. That's a very easy thing. That's not, technology's solution, even if the technology is there. But it's not the point. And it's what we do as a politician.
It increasingly, it's sort of saying, when I came to the first Congress 4 or 5 years ago, I walked through the trade fair and I thought I was in the wrong place. I thought I was totally in the wrong place. And I think all of you have kind of said, that the technology is there. What sort of feels in reverse order a little bit. We, as in government, NGO, institutions, probably need to do catching up, quite frankly. And I feel sometimes like rein the technology in a little bit and get a handle on it and sort of make it work for us. I said that we would also hopefully engage, turn the floor over to the audience in terms of questions. If you do have one, can I ask you to go to the microphone? It's easier for us to hear, and also then everyone gets to hear your question. And I'll do my best to recognize you as I can. Please, in the middle.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Karine Dognin-Sauze from the German Broadband Association, but I'm speaking as a climate-aware and very concerned citizen, climate change-aware citizen, too aware. So, yes, very interesting discussion. I very much share your impatience on we are moving, many things have been mentioned. There's so many solutions, smart solutions everywhere, but they don't add up to what we need to be in time to face this challenge. So I've heard that climate change is compared with an accident situation. You have the bystander confusion. I don't know if you have heard about that. So people at an accident place, they don't react because they don't know what to do. It's just too complex. Until somebody tells them, okay, you call the emergency, call the ambulance. You go there and help this person. And then people are starting to run. Coming back to your flip chart idea and about the climate crisis, framing it as a climate crisis, as you said, what about if every decision-making level framed it as a climate emergency, as some cities already did, like they declared climate emergency in their respective city. And then they give instructions to every sector. You have to do this, you have to do this, A, B, C, D. So then it becomes much clearer for people, because people are simply confused on what to do, I think. Maybe there's some thoughts from the panel.
Okay, let me turn it over. Does anybody want to kick that off? Laura?
Sure. I agree in using the terminology climate crisis, climate emergency. I think that's really useful. I've never tried telling anybody what to do. I've tried telling my husband what to do, and you can guess how well that's worked. But I think I've tried to lead by example and encourage people. And I'm going to bounce this off of what, there's a way to say it that makes it sound like people want to do it rather than they're forced to do it. Like, bike riding is fun, or look at this great new innovation that sounds amazing and cool, or like more free time, you know, the things like that, more time to relax instead of rushing all the time. So like sometimes just framing it as in getting something good rather than, I think when we talk about all the climate crisis, it's like, oh, we've got to change, I've got to give up something, I've got to give up my way of life. But and that kind of sounds so negative rather than, oh, this is something cool that you could get. And I just want to add one thing about this impatience. We have to remember that the iPhone is less than a dozen years old. We didn't even have an iPhone. And so I think sometimes, I don't know that this is true, but I hope and I deeply believe that it could turn really quickly. As much as there could be a tipping point in the ice melting and sea level really rising quickly, there could also be a really tipping point in society where the change happens fast, where enough people have built up enough so where then all of a sudden now everybody has a smartphone in their pocket. And I think the transportation sector could happen faster than the power plant sector, but I think we might be wrong about this whole idea that just because it's been slow in the past, the change, the societal change, that the society will continue to change slowly. The society might change really quickly. All we need is just that little juice. So that's what I'm hoping.
Miguel, I'm going to go to you, and then Bertrand back to you.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go to the next question to you, sir.
When we talk about people, we talk about us. So we work in companies, we work in corporations, we may influence these corporations in order to influence. And we as people, let's see my case. It's me, but it could be some of you, each one has his own context. In my case, I lead globally smart cities, so I will try, in the biggest professional services organization, so I will try to influence positively based on the role I have. I will try to accelerate the adoption of solutions. And I will vote in my municipality in the one that does the smartest things. And each one of us can do that. It takes some time, but so let's think of us. That's what I would do.
Bertrand?
No, I share this feeling of impatience and acting, but I'm not sure that creating this too much excitement in terms of emergency will be, I would say, will match the time we need to develop solution and to really get the buy-in from the various stakeholders, starting by the population. I think that what's happening, there is nothing new. Once again, what you said about climate change, you have articles in the New York Times in the 70s where they were speaking about if we use so much fossil fuel, something is going to happen. The solutions also are widely known. I think that where we really have to change, the political leaders were used to impose solutions maybe 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago. Today is not anymore the case. So how can we better create buy-in from the various stakeholders so that we can move forward in the adaptation we know that we'll have to go through?
Sir, I want to go to the next question behind you just so I can get as many people in as I can. Please.
Thank you. My name is Brennan, and I'm American, from the United States. I know you're also American, being from Canada.
That's kind of like saying everybody from Europe is the same, you realize?
I do realize that. I was also responding to your comment about the crisis and the framing of it as a crisis. And I just want to say that just because something is a crisis and a real crisis, when there is deep corporate influence and corruption in a political system, sometimes even being a clear and present crisis doesn't create the kind of change that you're looking for. For example, when Katrina happened in the United States, we didn't really have a conversation about climate change. When Deepwater Horizon happened, we didn't really take seriously the environmental impact of deepwater drilling. And when someone killed 20 kindergartners, we didn't do anything about gun control. So that continues. Even the hack of our political process, our electoral process, didn't get us to take interference in elections seriously. So that framing, I do agree that more making something positive change, as Laura was saying, was more valuable. As far as the question goes, I'd say, what do we do about overcoming deep political obstacles that are that even a crisis isn't causing the reaction we're looking for?
I'm going to ask for a response, and I'm also, in terms of time, I'm going to sort of work in reverse order, which I'm going to start with you, kind of taking that question, but also giving you license of about 30 seconds in terms of what's the takeaway. What would be your one takeaway for this audience that you'd like to leave with us? And I'll work from you back towards me. About 30 seconds each, please.
Creo que lo más importante siempre va a ser el tema de la educación. ¿No? Hablaban, por ejemplo, en este momento de que a veces las crisis no causan los efectos que se necesitan por cuestiones políticas. Yo creo que aquí lo más importante es, hay muchos políticos que desafortunadamente están pensando en la siguiente elección, en cómo ganar votos, en lugar de estar pensando en la siguiente generación y en el legado que van a tener para dejar un mundo mejor. En ese sentido, creo que si educamos a la gente va a poder distinguir quiénes son los políticos comprometidos, los que realmente están pensando no en la siguiente elección, sino los que están pensando en la siguiente generación. Esa sería ahora sí que mi finalización, porque creo que sin duda el que podamos educar a la gente para que estos problemas los entienda y entienda la repercusión que tiene en su comunidad, dentro de su familia, en su ciudad, es lo que puede hacer el cambio verdadero.
Miguel?
I don't know, my takeaway is that in the future, when I look at my kids, they are the ones that will change this. So, and it will be much faster than before, because what happens is that things are really happening, and when they are far, people don't act. Now they are really getting to us. So, and it will be our kids that will change, that will make this change. There are a lot of them.
Karine, final comment?
I think that we need to break this concept where you are on the side politician, on another side company, on another side citizen. It's enough. We need to stop that. We have to find the right agreement together and agreed on your urban agenda, what you have to do, your roadmap, and so on, and make things done, and that's it. I think that there is too much, division and bad debate that avoids a real action. The other thing is, it's sometimes very hard to take the right decision. It's also where we need to make it together. Recently, we had a high-level conference in Lyon with economists and so on, and I raised the question, are we right to move on electric vehicles? And no one were capable to provide me an answer that were just, comfortable for the future. We don't know. We don't know. So we are in a very complex period where we need to keep on going this dialogue and take the decision, but all together, not one for the other, and make it happen.
Laura, 30 seconds.
Sure. I'll address the question as far as the moneyed interest. They are very, very well organized. And to the point that we are going to have to, and I'll go back to the word I was using before, fight it, we have to be as well, if not better organized than the the moneyed interest who are controlling the systems now. And I'll piggyback on some of the things that others have said. Education is really important. So before I worked at NASA, I was a college professor for 13 years in the physical science department. I'm still very much involved in education. And I think that part of the success of the movements of the young people that have been happening recently are because for the last 20, 30 years, professors and educators have been working so hard to educate these young people, and now they are taking action and they are being organized. So if anybody, you know, if you want to do something, become as organized as the polluters, and then we will win.
Bertrand, 30 seconds to wrap up.
Maybe two comments. I think that once again, solutions exist, not only to mitigate, but also to adapt and eventually also restore the natural capital. So it's really a question of willingness to make it happen. It would be much more worrying if there were no solution. And the second thing, I think we need to think global, because developed countries have the resources, the human capital, the financial resources, to go through that adaptation, but we need to think that the planet is one, and we also need to bring solutions to the continents that do not have the necessary resources to go through what is going to happen, and as you rightly said, not being in addition responsible for it.
My 30 seconds is this. You've got two choices when you leave here. You're going to go home, you're going to go back to your job, your position, your life, whatever it is. Your two choices are, life will go on. Probably the sun will come up where you are tomorrow or the next day, and life will go on, and things will roll out. You can sit back, and it will come at you. Your second choice, you've already made it. You've made it by being here. And that second choice is not to let it come at you, to go out and to make a difference, and simply to bother, and to be a leader, and to take risks, and to be bold. And that's not for someone else. That's for every single one of us, no matter where we go, what we do, or how we do it. That's our responsibility, not in terms of just this subject, in terms of being citizens in the society that we're all part of. So I would say on behalf of all of us, it's sort of from us to you and sort of from you to us. It's a challenge to take on the leadership and for God's sakes, go out and make a bloody difference. Thank you.
Very well.